What is up, everybody? Ed Gow Jr. here from Dad Central, along with the guy.
Oh, the guy. You gave me a little bit of a different intro this day. I thought you were going to just leave the space for me to fill it.
I was going to leave space after I said the guy. So, okay.
What's up, everybody? Drew Solon from Dad Central. Looking forward to it today.
We got to keep that intro. So when we have a blooper show, we'll do that. That'll be one of our clips we put in there. What's up, everybody? We are here on the Dad Central show. It's sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care. Dove Men Plus Care believes that care is the best of a man. And because when men care for themselves, I'm still laughing here because when men care for themselves and others, there's a positive impact. And I think that was a very positive impact opening. What's up, Drew?
Well, Ed, another great opportunity to have a great conversation as we just, support fathers and being the best they can be.
Absolutely. And one of the many things I love about the friend we're bringing here is we had a pre-show conversation, and I hope it comes up about how important being a provider is as a father. And hopefully, well, I guess I'm going to have to bring it up now since I teased everyone at the beginning, but also, too, to just show that our conversations are international. We're getting fatherhood lenses from around the world. So leading up to that, I will have Drew introduce our friend.
Yeah, you're right, Ed. And there's, no matter where it seems people are across the world, as fathers, there's a lot of commonalities. And so today we're having Ralph Anania, and he's had over 35 years of business experience. He's an Australian Entrepreneur Award winner. He's an international speaker. He's regarded as an authority in business transformation. So from his bio, his mission is to enrich the small business community by encouraging sustainable change, not just in the organization, but most importantly, where it all stems from its leaders. And just as an aside, fatherhood is a most important leadership opportunity. So he says he's a family man with 3 amazing children who keep him inspired to continue doing what he loves best, which is making a difference in people's lives. And so he's also got a book. It's called Life Done Right, Timeless Wisdom to give you hope and inspiration for the future. So I'm excited to have Ralph on the show, looking forward to the timeless wisdom and inspiration he's going to give us and fathers who hear his story.
What an intro, and there he is. I'm telling you, that was good stuff, Drew. Good day, Ralph. How are you?
Very well, thanks, Ed, and lovely to see both yourself and Drew. Thank you for having me on the show.
Our pleasure, Drew. I'll let you start off.
Well, Ralph, it's really an honor to have you here and to have this conversation, not only because of your actual vast experience that you're bringing to us, but also because just the opportunity to inspire our listeners with your story. And we really love to start the show getting a little bit of the backstory, the insight into where it all started for Ralph. So can you tell us a little bit, what was life like for you growing up, and how did it all start for Ralph and Anania?
Sure, great question. Thank you. My parents came out from Italy in the early 60s. My dad came out in 1960, and then he had made enough money to send over to Italy to bring mum and my 2 sisters and brother over in 1962. And then I was born in 64, and I've got a younger brother who was born in 67. So I'm one of 5 children. And, life growing up as a child of an immigrant family wasn't always, roses and rainbows, I guess. It was difficult at times because there was a lot of challenges that came with that in the early 70s, the late 60s, early 70s of growing up and going to school and being bullied by some people that I guess weren't as kind as they should have been. And we've seen what we know today as bullying. Those days there was no such thing as bullying. It was just whatever it was. And the sad part about it was that, there was teachers that were the same way. But it did set me up for a stronger future, and some of the things that I learned along the way being conditioned by my dad and spending a lot of time with my dad got me to understand the real values of life. And, one of the things that he taught me was that integrity and respect was something that, you had to earn, and they were very, very important to me. So the foundation for me was very, very good, even though it was challenging at times. But the foundation is what set me up for the future. And and I'm a proud father, and I've got 3 amazing children, as you mentioned, and I've given them the best opportunity that I possibly can in having the background that I've had and being able to support them and guide them along their journey as well. But look, we all go through life with different challenges and different circumstances, and some people can sit in a corner and cry about things, and other people can take that challenge and grow and learn from it and evolve. And I guess I just learnt that growing and evolving was a better option, which is what has brought me to where I am today and doing the things that I've done and being able to share that wisdom, and change people's lives, because that's what I'm about.
Nice. Ralph, go ahead, Drew. It sounds like you had something you want to say, so I'll let you go ahead.
Well, I think there's a lot of interesting elements of just the story you shared. So being, as you said, an immigrant family, new to the country, and that transition piece. And there's a person I've listened to. His name is Brian Buffini. He's an American entrepreneur now, but from Ireland, and immigrated to the United States. And he actually wrote a book called The Immigrant Edge, and it's about the importance of the work ethic that gets instilled in you. And so many of the wealthy or millionaires in the American continent are actually from immigrant families. And so there's that interesting element that's a tie. But also in Canada, we have a lot of people who are new to this country and who can probably relate to that part of your story, and who may have said, oh yeah, that's kind of like what it was like for me to. But it sounds like your dad was really the catalyst, and he instilled some important things in you. You talked about integrity and respect, and that helped carry you through. So can you talk maybe about the influence that your dad had on you as you were, this immigrant family new to the country?
Yeah, so Dad came out from Italy, and he worked the mornings as a concreter in our famous Warragamba Dam here in New South Wales. And then in the afternoon, he worked for a very close friend of his who he came out from Italy with, who had a little corner fruit store. And that's where he paved, his way and craft in becoming a fruiterer and a very, very, very good retailer, which is what I grew up with and lived my life growing up in was retail. And, he was a very prominent figure in the local area. He was very well respected. Dad was all about respect, in the community, and it was very, very important to him that he lived by his word. So if Dad shook hands with you, that was his signature in blood. There was no need for any paper or pen. If Dad gave you his word, that was it, and that's how he raised me. Raised all of us actually, but he said, when you shake hands with somebody, you make sure that you deliver on what you shake hands on. And I've lived my life like that. I've been burnt because of it, and I've learned many lessons because of it. Because unfortunately, society isn't like that today. But for me, growing up, having those sort of lessons were very important, and there was no possible opportunity of going against that, because Dad was very strong in the community and made sure that respect and integrity continued on. So, being the child of someone like that, wasn't easy to live by, let me tell you. But it's not until you get older in life that you appreciate those lessons. At the time you don't, but as you get older in life, you really do appreciate those lessons, because they're the foundations of what makes you who you are, or molds you into who you are.
Ralph, you talked about lessons, those younger lessons that you experienced with your dad. What was one of the younger lessons that in your elder journey in life as a dad, as a father, that you go, yeah, that was from back then?
Yeah, look, you don't realize until you that same situation sort of transfers to you, and obviously because I have a son, that happens. But I guess the most important is how you conduct yourself, what you what you put yourself out there as, because at the end of the day, you know, we what we really have is our integrity. You know, that sort of crafts us into who we are. It doesn't matter how much money you have. You could be the richest person in the world, and if you're a horrible person, you're a horrible person. And you could be the poorest person in the world, and if you're a phenomenal person, you're a phenomenal person. And that was really important. And a lot of that sort of comes through when you start to have the conversations with your own children, you know, and in my case, my son, where a lot of the conversations that I had with him were based on the foundation of the conversations that I had with my dad, you know, when I was growing up. And, you know, you've got to stop yourself sometimes. I mean, you don't say it when you're having a conversation with your own son, but you've got to stop yourself and say, well, wow, you know, like that's my dad talking to me, and now I'm talking to my son in exactly the same way. So it's those times that it's not that you need to be prepared. They just happen because that was the foundation that you were built, you built your future upon. And that's, I guess, what keeps coming up for you. And you don't have to think about it because it's just automatically instilled. And again, you don't realize it at the time, but it is very, very important, you know. And, you know, the way you treat people, the way you want to be treated, the respect that you have for people, and the respect that you want to have coming back to you, all stems upon what you start off with. So if you start off with respecting people the way you want to be respected, you will be respected that same way. You know, if you turn out to be a horrible person, people are not going to treat you with respect. You know, and there's sort of some of the things that come up when when those conversations are happening with my own son now, that you don't realize at the time. They're there, and they just pop up, and you go, oh yeah, there's Dad again.
That's great, Ralph. I really, I think, certainly resonate with that message, and it's very important, I think, for all of us to take to heart. Before we get too far into your story, because you're talking about influencing stuff, I want to talk about your transition to fatherhood. Can you tell us, what was that transition like for you when you first became a father? And were there any specific challenges or fears that came up? But then, how did you manage that transition as well as you could?
I don't think there were any challenges. I was ready for fatherhood. I mean, there might have been a slight period of, I guess, overwhelm at first because it's all new. And I guess when you come from a family that is very close, and most European families are very close, you grow up with nieces and nephews that, you sort of take on as if they're your own anyway. So I was lucky in that sense. I mean, I'm the fourth child of five, and so therefore I'd gone through many nieces and nephews before my own children came up. So when my daughter was born, my daughter, I got two girls, and then my son is the youngest. I was really pleased to be able to take on that challenge of fatherhood. It was a blessing. I loved having my girls because the girls just give you a different perspective on life, and there's a different connection there to boys. I'm not saying that I don't have that relationship with my son. I do very, very strongly, but the girls are a beautiful part or a pathway to come into parenting, because they're just beautiful little creatures, and then you get attached to them, and then I don't know too many people that have daughters that they're not daddy's little girl, regardless of how many daughters they have. And the transition wasn't that, never really was an issue for me at all, Drew. I enjoyed it, embraced it, and loved it.
Yeah, it's great.
And still do today. I've got to say, my daughters are 26 and 23, and I still have dates with my daughters together and separately, and we're always going out, whether it's to dinner or whether it's to the movies, or whether it's just out having breakfast on a Saturday or a Sunday morning. We're always doing things, and I'm very proud of that, because it's important to me that at 26 and 23, you don't see many females today that want to be with their dads. And I'm very proud of that with my girls, because they enjoy being around me. So, I guess something, was done right, and they enjoy being with me. So it's great.
Okay. Something obviously was done right. Now you got to help us who want the same type of great relationship with our children. What did you do right? Talk to us about that as a dad. What did you start early on that you feel has built to the point where you now have two daughters who want to still go out on dates with that and a son who wants to connect with that? Tell us.
So, and this is really, I guess, the most important part is the time that you spend with your children in the early years. Because if you don't spend that time in the early years, they're not going to be there later in life. I spent the first sort of, I think, 6 or 7 years of my eldest daughter's life, working 7 days a week. We didn't encountered some challenges in the business, and things were pretty tight financially, and I just had to work. And I missed out on a few things, in that early period, and I wasn't going to do that again. And then as my second daughter came along, and then my son, I made sure that I was part of their life in everything that they did. And I very, very rarely, I'm sure I missed the odd school event, but very, very rarely I made an effort to go to everything. And I made an effort to spend time with them and be there for them and enjoy life together. Ensured that we went on family holidays, ensured that I was involved in their life, not just as a father, but as somebody that was their fan, as somebody that was supportive, as somebody that was really enjoying whatever they did and allowing them to do whatever they wanted to do and become whatever they wanted to become. I've always been supportive. I've never had my children do something that I've wanted them to do. It's always been supporting their journey, whatever they want to do. Obviously, there's guidance there, but I've always supported whatever it is that they want to do. I've supported that. And that's really important, because if you don't set that foundation early in life, when they get to their teens, and by teens, I mean literally sort of 13, you really have lost them. I know a lot of people who have lost their children at 13, 14, 15. They don't want to know their parents. They're gone. Their parents are just a provider, and that's it. And it's just a provider as in a roof over their head and financially. And then their parents work really, really hard to try and win their support and their love. And you can't do that. It's too late. So the time and effort that you put in when your children are young is what will set the groundwork and pave the way for your future, and the connection and the relationship that you're going to have with them forever as they get older. That's probably the most important part that I can't stress enough for every parent, or for every dad especially, because it is important. And I see a lot of dads who have no relationship with their daughters, none. But I'm grateful, and I don't take it for granted. I'm very, very grateful for the relationship that I do have with mine.
Ralph, I think the last few minutes that you just shared, we should just capitalize that. No matter what stage a dad is with his child or children in life, I think that's great teaching. You may not think or thought it was teaching, but that was real strong. So I just want to bless you for that, for those last few moments. That was very, very good. Drew?
Thank you.
Yeah, excellent, Ralph. Thank you very much. You've written a book called Life Done Right for a reason, and you just gave us the 2-minute, well, maybe 4-minute version of fatherhood done right. So thank you for that. And I heard some really great things. I'm going to summarize it just as you have to be very intentional right from the start, and you have to find ways throughout whatever life is bringing you to invest in the relationship with your child or with your children. And you talked about some adversity. You talked about, having to work 7 days a week. And so, that was a season of life where you weren't, but you made a commitment to change things up and to be present in the different moments and the different times in your children's lives. And I think that's a great, very important message that you said for every parent. So I think there's also, from what we know of you, there have been challenges to your ability to sometimes do that. Or that may have pulled your attention and energy away. You are a highly successful entrepreneur. You must require a lot of you to be able to keep that going. Plus, some of the adversity I'm referring to is, you are a separate or have, a separation and divorce in this mix as well. So can you talk to us about, how did you maintain that, those principles you just talked about through the adversity that life has brought your way?
Yeah, some parts of it were real challenging, and some parts of it were a breeze because of the opportunity that I had in the way that I was raised. Going through a divorce is not joyful at all for anybody. I don't know anybody that's gone through a smooth transition of divorce. It's challenging for the couple that are divorcing. It's very challenging for the children. And challenging for everybody around, because they don't know who really they should be supporting, and do they support one or the other? Do they support both? Very, very hard to support both. And so sometimes you have to choose. So it is challenging. It's very challenging. I guess the most important part is to not get caught up in, the doom and gloom of it. Whatever has happened, and it's happened for a reason. It takes two to contribute to an outcome. And I'm not saying that I'm perfect. I did the very best that I could during the period that I was challenged with. And during that time, I guess I put my life on hold to ensure that my children were stable and had the support that they required through that period, to make sure that, again, when they came out of it, they were in a good position to be able to learn and also grow from it. And that's the best that one can offer. I know there are many people that their kids are secondary to everything else, and they're so consumed in themselves that they don't care about what feelings or what their children are going through. So they leave their children to their own devices, and this is where you see then that the children go off the rails, and they might do drugs or other things that I guess puts them in a very, very compromising situation later in life. And I wasn't going to have that. Not that I even really thought of that as being the outcome. The focus for me was generally, and I say this, with hand on heart, it was purely and simply to ensure that my children were settled, stable, and in a good place, because that was important for me. It wasn't about how they were going to turn out or not turn out. That was going to happen anyway, because the way that things turn out is a byproduct of how you prepare, or how well you prepare. And I've always lived my life like that, even in business. The more you prepare and the better you are ready for things, the better the outcome. And that's how I went through that stage of my life as well with my children. So understanding the support level that is required is really important. And don't bring children into arguments that they don't need to be involved in, because I guess I was guilty of that at some stage until I was made aware of it, and then I had to change. But children shouldn't be part of the arguments or the conversations that happen between the parents, because they're fairly innocent in all of this. So you need to separate the two, and just keep the conversations regarding the separation separate to what the conversation around the children are.
Go ahead, Drew.
Great. Thanks for that, Ralph. That's really great information, and great for any dad who's listening. There are some specific circumstances around your separation divorce that are maybe not the typical. Would you be comfortable just sharing a little bit about those circumstances, and then kind of how you were able to navigate that?
Sure. So look, my separation, I guess, stemmed from, working extremely hard, building the business that I built over a long period of time. There was, when I moved into the speaking world, I did a lot of traveling and I spent a lot of time away from home. And during that period, I was, again, providing, and that was what I was raised to do, was provide, be the provider of the family. And, when you're going through challenging times and you've got your wife at home who's looking after the children, I wouldn't bring home the challenges that would occur in the business, because I didn't think that it was right to add any more pressure. Looking back now, it was something that I should have done. I should have shared more about what was happening. I should have opened up, to my partner and discussed things that I didn't discuss, because sometimes, you need to have that sounding board to navigate through. And I guess I could have done that a little bit different. I mean, we could always do things a little bit different. Hindsight's a wonderful thing. The challenge for me, I guess, was that my ex-wife was from Melbourne, Victoria, and she always wanted to move back to live down there. And my businesses were here in New South Wales, and it was too hard to do. And by the time the businesses were sold and were in a position, the children didn't want to move. So yeah, there was a lot of moving parts in that, Drew, that are different to most other people. And I didn't see it coming, and when it did come, it sort of hit me pretty hard, and I sort of went through a very, very rough period there. But and I am grateful also that I had the children to see me through it, because I can understand clearly why some people, some fathers go through, the dark places that they go through when they go through divorce, because if they don't have anything to keep them occupied, they go into a spiral, and I can understand how that can happen. I was blessed that I had my children that were with me, and I cared for my children, and they sort of kept me, driven to continue to do the best that I can and live life to the greatest I possibly could, which is what drove me to want to share some of that wisdom and experience, because I wasn't a great learner at school. As I said earlier, I was bullied quite a lot. So I didn't really learn that well. And most of my learning came from after school, where I had done some courses and did as much learning as I possibly could external to school. And for me, it was important that I could share some of what I'd gone through with my real life experiences, because I appreciate real life experiences. It's okay to write a book on theory, but if you haven't experienced it yourself, there's a different element to that. And for me, it's important, what I share, whether it's fatherhood, whether it's business, whether it's relationship, I share from my own personal experience. It doesn't mean that, I know better than somebody else. I can only share the parts that I've lived through that is real. And for me, it's about being real and keeping it real. And if there's value in that for somebody that's going through a similar circumstance, which as you would know, everybody goes through similar circumstances, then they can pick up on that, and they can learn and take that, real life experience and implement it into their own life and see how it can help them navigate through their challenges and their circumstances.
Ralph, I want to jump in for a quick second, and hopefully won't talk too much about the separation and divorce, but something that really struck me when you just shared is about your kids' support during that time. How would Ralph be different today if he didn't have his kids' support during that time?
I think, look, it's hard to say, but I think I would have probably spiraled into a dark place, out of control in some way. I mean, I don't really drink, so I'm not like an alcoholic, but I can see why people become alcoholics and people, become drug addicts, because that's it's a release for them. It's a place where they go and they get rid of the pain. And I've seen many, many people that have been in similar situations to me, people that I know personally that have taken to drugs and taken to alcohol. Would I have gone down that path? look, I don't know, because I was already on the journey of helping people and making sure that people that I could help people go through challenges. I have, very, very strong faith, and that kept me going as well. But just the fact that, I had my children was a blessing. It was a real blessing for me. So I can only share what I actually went through, Ed.
Thank you. Drew?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much, Ralph. Well, I can see that clearly through whatever adversity or whatever life has brought you, there's this idea of growth, which I think is embedded in what you're sharing and talking about. You're talking about reflection. You're talking about, here's what I've learned in the process of what I went through and what I might even do differently. And so, which makes sense, because part of your mission is about encouraging sustainable change. And clearly you've lived this idea of sustainable change. And you're talking about your entrepreneurial background, it says not just in the organization, but most importantly, where it all stems from its leaders. And so you're modeling that idea of sustainable change. So let's talk a little bit about this idea of, you're bringing sustainable change, to people and helping make a difference in their lives. How do you take that and apply it as a father? Is there anything you can give to the listener that says, okay, I'm a dad, I don't have the relationship you described, but I want that. Or I'm a dad, I'm really invested in my work, but I know you to be more invested at home. How can you take what you know about sustainable change and say to a dad, here's what you need to do to start creating sustainable change at home?
So sustainable change to me, Drew, is, and it goes with everything, regardless of whether it's, in business, in life, in parenting, in fatherhood. Sustainable change comes from foundation, and everything it starts with the foundation. It's just like building a house. If you build a house with a very strong foundation, the house won't fall down. So the foundation that you need to put into your children is where it all stems from. That's the most important part. I've seen a lot of people yell at their children. I've seen a lot of people smack their children. I've never laid a finger on my children. I copped plenty of belting as a child, let me tell you. But it was one thing that I didn't want to do with my children. But there are different ways of getting your children to do things. My way of punishing my children was that they were to do lines. I must not, or I will not do this, it started off with 10, and then it would be 20, and then it would be 100, and depending on how many times they yelled and screamed, they'd do it. You'd add an extra 10, and then if they were untidy and you couldn't read them, they'd have to redo them. And over time, they learn. That's punishment enough. Or you go without things. And today we live in a society that is click and collect. We all want everything to happen, now, and that is not sustainable. You can't have anything that is that happens quickly to be long term. So you need to put the effort in. You need to sit and explain to your children why you're doing what you're doing. If they've done something wrong, sit and explain so they can understand what your expectation is. If they've let you down, sit them down and let them understand why they've let you down, what they could have done wrong, why they're not getting what they want because of certain circumstances, certain reasons. If you give your children everything, it's like giving a child when they cry, if they want a lolly and you give them a lolly, they're going to continue to cry every time they want a lolly, and they won't understand that they've got to do something to be able to earn that. So you want to teach them that regardless of what they want in life, they have to earn it. And that's where the sustainable part comes in, because that's the longevity. I'm not here to criticize, but I have seen many parents who, their children cry, so they give them the iPad, and then they wonder why they're not interacting with other children as they get older. Why? Because they're too busy having a conversation and sharing a glass of wine, and they don't want to be disturbed. So here, we'll just give the kid an iPad and, he'll shut up or she'll shut up. You can't do that. because that doesn't teach the child anything. And what it does teach them, it teaches them to become spoilt little brats. And And that's where it is important that, that they go to bed at a certain time, that there is structure in their life. You can't have children unstructured. There needs to be time for bed. There needs to be time for dinner. It needs to be structured, because otherwise you won't get that consistency through everything that you're trying to achieve with them. So I think, again, Drew, it comes from the foundation and the time that you put into them as they evolve and as they grow. And I know, my ex-wife did an amazing job with my children. I mean, there was a set time that they went to bed, and every time they reached their next birthday, they may have been allowed to stay up an extra 30 minutes, and until they got to their teens. But dinner is dinner. Within that 30 or 60 minute time bracket, it's important. You can't feed a child at 10 o'clock at night and then expect them to have a decent night's sleep. They need to eat at 6 or 7 o'clock at night so they can digest their food and then have a comfortable night's sleep. But I have unfortunately, and I say this, again, hand on heart, I have unfortunately seen parents who are too consumed in their own life that they their child is not, I guess, as important or as prominent, and they give them what they want to just keep them quiet, and then they turn into rogues. I've got many a friend who are very wealthy and have rogue children because they've given them everything they want and then expected them to be something that today they're not, and they complain on how their children don't listen, or they're doing things that they shouldn't be doing. And I don't like that. And the other thing to that is that when my children want to do something or want to explore, every child wants to explore and experiment with things. Sit them down and let them explain to you what they want to do. And if it's something that you feel that you can let them do at home, let them do at home. It's like drinking. It's no good not letting a child have alcohol and then they go out and they get plastered and do something silly or get hurt. You want to see what it's like to get drunk? Get drunk at home. Here, knock yourself out so you can actually have that experience, but you're in a safe haven. You're at home. You're in my home. And if something happens, I'm here to look after you. That way you know that when you go out, if you want to get drunk, this is what it's going to feel like. Whereas a lot of people don't. They won't let their child drink until the age that they're supposed to be drinking. Then they'll go out, they'll get smashed and do something silly and pay for it for the rest of their life.
Yeah. Ralph, thank you so much. You just gave parents a whole lot of blocks that they can place in the foundation that they're beginning to build for their children. And I'm not sure if you're watching the video, you saw me kind of like, half cheering at certain points as Ralph's talking about some of these fundamental, I'll say disciplines. But really, at Dad Central, we talk about what is an involved father, and it starts with, what does your child need? And once you look at what the child needs, an involved father is one who addresses and supports the child in their needs, not the parents' needs. And so I think that was an important message that you were talking about. It's got to be responding to your child based on their needs, and you build a foundation around structure, which Ed knows me. I'm a structure person. So music to my ears. Thank you for that, Ralph. That was great. Ed.
There's so many different avenues we could go. During our conversation today, you mentioned about being bullied as a kid. And I'd just like to know if you could talk about how those experiences and how it impacted you. And what advice would you have for parents who have children that are experiencing bullying?
Yeah, look, for me, it was one of the things that I really didn't enjoy about school, and being bullied, was not enjoyable. And I'm talking about a time where bullying wasn't even recognized as bullying. And today, and I say this openly, a bully needs to be bullied. There's no other way to to say it, but you need to stand up to a bully. And if you're being bullied, you stand up to that bully, and you'll find that they'll change very, very quickly. And don't get me wrong, this happens in business as well. There are business leaders out there that lead with an iron fist, that are just bullies. And I have encountered many of those situations, and the only way to go back is exactly what they do to you, you do to them. And I tell you what, they really get a shock, because they don't expect it. So bullying should never be accepted, ever, in any way, shape or form, whether it's because of your race, religion, color, creed, whatever it may be. It's just, we're all humans. We're all humans. We're on this earth together. God created us equally. And I don't care how much money you have or where you've come from. We should have that respect for one another. That is the most important thing. And just because you've got more than somebody else, it doesn't make you any better. And therefore, it shouldn't be accepted if somebody is out there bullying. So and I'm not saying go and fight somebody physically. I'm just saying put somebody in their place if they are out of place, is what I'm saying for a bully.
Well, thanks for that, Ralph. And I couldn't agree more. But it sounds like, if that last point of you're not going fighting, what are you teaching your child then? So are you teaching your child assertive communication? Are you teaching your child their own self-confidence to say, it's not, and teaching them what's acceptable behavior, what's not? Can you talk a little bit about that from your perspective?
Yeah, sure. So from that perspective, you are not what somebody else deems you to be. So just because somebody is bullying you and berating you, it doesn't mean that's who you are. That is their insecurity. And if it's their insecurity, call them on it. That's a challenge, because most people that bully are insecure about something in their own life. That's really what it is. And if you call them on it, they are shocked and they don't know how to respond. And you need to teach your children to be confident and comfortable in their own skin. And again, that doesn't mean stand up and physically fighting, but fighting for what you believe in. And what you believe in is what you've taught them from a very young age. And that is to have self-discipline, self-respect, self-care. Those are important things to teach a child, because it doesn't matter what somebody else deems them to be. They are who they are meant to be, and they're put on this earth for a purpose. And they're put on this earth for a reason. And most people in society don't know what their purpose is, because they've been told something else. And I mentor a lot of people and a lot of senior executives in many, many, many different walks of life who don't know what their purpose is. They've been very successful, but they don't know what their purpose in life is. And as I've said, and you've mentioned it a few times, my purpose in life is to make a difference in somebody else's life. My purpose is to share what I've experienced, what I've learned, and be able to empower somebody else to go out there and empower somebody else. That's what my purpose is, and that's because I believe that's what I was put on this earth to achieve.
That's great. I'm going to have one more question, then I'm going to leave it to Ed after this. How do you, as a dad, help your kids find their purpose?
Encourage them to do what they feel is something that's really, really passionate for them. And passion drives purpose. And when they're passionate about something and it takes no effort and they can do it quite easily, that's where it all stems from. And then you support them in that. So I've not been one to have my children go and live their life to doing the things that I could never do. I've supported them in doing what they want to do as best as I possibly can for them to achieve the goals that they want to achieve and making the difference that they believe they can make. So I think it's important that they, to live a life of purpose is obviously to live a life that fulfills you with passion. And when you're passionate about something, that's the driver, that's the key that keeps you moving forward, because it comes effortlessly. You know, it doesn't take any effort to do. So that's important.
Love it. Ralph, I have one last conversation piece, and we talked about it before we did the recording, but I want you to bring it back to us. You recently celebrated your son's 21st birthday. And I just like to do with our audience, do some reflection that you had with that event as a father, and whatever comes to your heart that you want to share with our audience as a dad celebrating your son's 21st birthday.
You know, yes, Ed, sorry. It's funny how you don't realize the things that you do until certain situations happen in life. And my son was, all my three children went to private school, and that was a choice. It was a choice and a sacrifice that we made for them. But people send their children to private school for different reasons, and because I didn't get the chance that I would have liked at schooling, I wanted to give my children the best opportunity. And at the time, I thought private school was going to give them the best schooling possible. Reality is, though, that private schools will only cater for one part of it. You still have to parent the child at home. And a lot of parents in private schools have this misconception that they send their children to private school and the school will develop their children into something that they want them to be. And it doesn't work like that. And they even tell you that at the school, that, you know, the school can only do so much, and as a parent, you need to do the rest at home. I've had the privilege of seeing, you know, my son go through his entire schooling with many of his friends, many of his mates, who a lot of them were at his 21st. There was about 80 people at his 21st, and you know, probably 95% of the boys there were boys that he went to school with. He went to a private boys' school, and I was heavily involved in the school, and I knew a lot of them. And you know, they had a great time. They all drank. You know, it was a great night. But it was the level of respect that they showed. You know, even with the way they conducted themselves, which was very, very different, and it was great to see the level of just the respect that they brought with them. You know, that at 21 years of age, as most of them were in their 20s or 21, that they could come and enjoy themselves, but not be absolutely plastered where they've made spectacles of themselves, and hold themselves, you know, with an element of integrity. And it was a proud moment for me, because having seen most of these boys grow up, you know, with my son, and having seen, you know, how they conduct themselves after school, because some of them I haven't seen for a little while. A lot of them I do still see because there's a friendship. But, you know, to see how they've grown into mature men it was a proud moment for me. And it was nice to see. It was nice to see, because it just encourages you that you can actually go out there and put on a great 21st birthday and have people there that enjoy themselves for what it's meant to be, and not to to think that it's just a free for all drinking night and end up being having to be kicked out or causing problems. So it was really nice.
Thank you for sharing that. And I have a feeling you're a father to more than your three kids. So thank you for providing that. I really appreciate that. Drew?
It's been a wonderful conversation, Ralph. Thank you so much for sharing the wisdom and insights that I think any father can take and begin applying into their life and in their relationships with their children. So it's been a wonderful conversation. I just want to say thank you so much, Ralph.
Absolute pleasure. And again, you know, thank you so much for having me on your show. I really appreciate it. It means more to me than you can imagine, because again, I just love to share my journey. I love to share my wisdom. I love to help people and guide people. And if I can do that and make a difference in somebody else's life, then I've achieved, you know, what I'm meant to achieve in life.
So let me ask, Ralph, what is the best place people can get a hold of you or find out more about you?
Just my website, just ralphanania.com is probably the best place. They can connect with me there. They can reach out, and I'll answer everybody. Yeah.
Well, again, Ralph, thank you so much for taking the time from the other side of the world for us
My
today,
pleasure.
and really appreciate it. And again, give yourself grace and don't just manage your time, manage your energy. And I have a feeling we'll be seeing you soon.
Thank you.
Take care. All right, Drew, another great conversation today.
It was it. And in that last story that Ralph shared, I think that's the type of example that what he was talking about prior to that conversation. That's the bringing it full circle. The blocks on that foundation that he'd built over the years and poured into his son and invested in the relationship that's what happens when you do those types of things. They turn to these ages and you see the results, because it's hard to see it in the moment, right? And to think of it, Ralph, he's like, oh man, and he was probably investing, but you don't see the return, which is kind of like actual investing in the market sometimes. It's very similar to a quote that John Wooden, the famous UCLA men's basketball coach, would talk about. He said, I will never know if I've been a successful coach until 20 years after my players have graduated, because he was investing into them as people and building the foundation in them. And so that's what I heard in Ralph's story. And I think it's a great way to, it's just a great message.
Yeah. So many knowledge bombs that Ralph dropped there. You talk about investment. I always say to fathers that parenting is an investment, not an expense. So just it's one good. Of the many. So go ahead.
It's good. That's it.
That's all. All right. So we finish off another one today. We had fun right from the beginning. As you can tell, we always have fun when we do these epic conversations. And as always, we want to just say that the Dad Central Show is sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care. Dove Men Plus Care believes care is the best of a man, because when men care for themselves and others, there's a positive impact. As always, we want to hear from you, because the only way we can get better is hearing from you. So always reach out to us at podcasts@dadcentral.ca. If you want to listen to our epic conversations or watch replays of our epic conversations, dadcentral.ca/podcast. And always check out the website, piles of free resources on the Dad Central website. So as always, remember, don't just manage your time, manage your energy. Remember to give yourselves grace, and we will catch you soon. Take care. Be well.